Welcome to Brew Crime podcast, where we drink brews, talk crime, conspiracies, fuck up the script, or whatever catches our attention. This is Mike and my co-host.
Ed McMahon. No, that's not true. I'm Ryan Seacrest. That's not true either. I am no way, shape, or form as attractive as him or rich. This is just your lovable old humble JT.
Oh my god. All right. Well, we're no longer talking about volcanoes.
No.
Huge body count in mine, which is really sad. And oof, JT's, right? Oof. It's a really intriguing story. It's like we said in the last episode, the documentary was amazingly done and is horrifying. And it's not going to get any better this week, actually.
And it's not going to get any better next week.
Yeah, probably not.
At all. So strap in.
Yes.
I hope you have your 5-point harness, because this is going to get fucking gnarly.
Yes. And it's so bizarre because we're going to be talking about one of Canada's smallest provinces.
Yep.
Small towns, small provinces, small states, whatever. Often small crimes, right?
Just a small town girl living in a lonely world.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
I mean, I've been in small towns before where you listen to the radio and it's talking about friggin' potted plants being stolen. That's usually the level of news you hear in smaller towns, right?
Or alcohol being placed on an island.
Yes,
that's a deep cut.
Yes. Well, that's not. That's a hobby holiday, and there's no town there. It's just a desolate island.
It's true. It's where I want to live.
But this next two episodes are going to be Crimes of Nova Scotia.
Yes.
And I've never been, but it looks so gorgeous.
It really does. And I break into a very, very small bit about like population there. I had to restrain myself from going deeply into what Nova Scotia was.
I do a little bit too. Hopefully we don't overlap too much.
If we do, I'll delete the stuff that's duplicate, because editing.
Exactly. But you mentioned it here.
Right.
All right. Well,
good point.
Why don't I tell you the title of my story, and then we'll get into the beer pairing. Not loving it. The Sydney River McDonalds Murders.
I won't be laughing later on, so I have to laugh now.
Yes.
Not loving it.
Yeah, ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Fuck you, Ronald McDonald.
So the beer pairing is from Phillips Brewing and Malting Co. out of Victoria, BC. I was actually originally going to try to buy some beers from Nova Scotia because you can ship beer legally now across Canada, blah, blah, blah. But it was a minimum 12 can or 6 bottle order, and the shipping ended up being like $36. So I thought, fuck it, jeez, not going to bother. Maybe in the future, but not this time.
So here's the deal. If you want us to be able to have good beer that's representative of the areas we're covering, become a Patreon. That's what that means. Or rate and review so we're higher up so we get more revenue. I don't know what to tell you all.
Exactly. But yeah, that's what we need. Amnesiac Double IPA. And it's two reasons. Because after researching and writing this, I want to forget it.
Oh, God.
And it's a double IPA, and this is a West Coast IPA, so it's bitter because it left a bitter taste in my mouth.
This is not what you put under like a movie poster. These
are
not the reviews.
No.
I'm not psyched about this, but we are going to go through it because it's a story that needs to be told.
So it's got like a bit of a fruity nose, a bit citrusy, piney, a little bit sweet on the nose. I'll admit it doesn't smell like it's super fresh. I'm not sure when this bottle was bottled. One of the 4-packs that I almost bought of cans was out of date at this liquor store, so who knows? This might not be the freshest beer in the world. It's got kind of a grapefruit flavor, and then like a really like citrusy peel, like biting into like an orange peel. Tons of bitterness, some resin. It's definitely a West Coast IPA. And it comes in at a solid 8.5% alcohol. So it's not fucking around.
No, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
But you're about to find out.
Yeah, I'm going to have another sip of this before I start reading this.
You guys didn't see that, but Mike's sip is literally the whole glass.
No, I didn't chug it. I got to save some for later in the story.
Right.
The winter of 1991 into 1992, a trio of losers spent most of their time together.
Sounds like my summers.
Not this kind of losers, though.
Oh, well, probably not, no.
The trio was Derek Wood, 18, Freeman Daniel McNeil, 23, and Darren Muse, 18. Bob McKenzie, the principal at their old high school, Riverview High School, would later say they were regular students. And who knows, maybe they were, but something changed. That was the case.
Aren't they always like, they're always just like, they were regular people. I'm just waiting for one person to hop on the news and be like, they were assholes.
And these guys were assholes.
I guess that's next week.
The three grew up in Sydney River, a community in the northeast portion of the province of Nova Scotia in Cape Breton Regional Municipality. Today, the community has a population of only 455 people, with 170 of the 176 private dwellings being homes. So it's small town.
I got more people in my building where I work.
Yep. There's more people in my building that I live in.
When you say 400 people in a town, all I can think of is basically the island that Popeye was filmed on.
Yeah.
That's all I get.
Nova Scotia is the second smallest province in Canada, with an estimated population of just over 1 million people in the fourth quarter of 2022.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want to say this because I'll erase it from my script. And I don't mind saying that out loud. That's fine. To give everybody in the United States an idea of how small that entire province is, the city of New York City is 8 million people.
Yes.
And all of Nova Scotia is 1, right? Just over 1 million. So Nova Scotia, while it has a low population, it has one of the highest population densities.
Just to give you an idea, too, there's 1 million people living in Nova Scotia.
Mm-hmm.
The area of land in Nova Scotia is 52,942 square kilometers. Staten Island, which is New York City, right? You said there's 8 million people there?
Mm-hmm.
Staten Island is 152 kilometers squared. And I mean, it's still a really small island province, but
it's all vertical, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And if you're a conspiracy theorist, it goes down too.
Well, I mean, it does. That's where they get the water from, but that's something different.
Mm-hmm.
So there was scuttlebutt that Derek, Freeman, and Darren spent their time that winter breaking into homes and stealing shit. Basically, your typical delinquent, they're just out causing shit. They're not good kids, but it's not that out of the norm for shitheads like breaking into places and stealing stuff.
It's not that serious, it's a relationship, but it's not Facebook official yet.
Yeah. I mean, like they'd still get arrested, but it's just stealing a little bit of shit here and there. Petty shit,
petty stuff.
So it's unknown if Derek Wood took a job at the Sydney River McDonalds with ill intent, but he would take a job there nonetheless in March of 1992. Derek would notice that during his shifts, a lot of money would end up in the safe at McDonald's. His estimation was that there would be $200,000 in the safe any night.
He should be an accountant, not a criminal. Right? Good grief. That's a big old number right there. That's a lot of money.
And I mean, the number's probably right, but this amount would be huge for any group of kids. And with kids with a serious lack of morals, this would be too much to pass up.
Yeah.
So the plan was to rob Derek's place of work, so they'd start planning.
No.
May 6, 1992, Derek would head to work as normal and work his entire shift. Before leaving work, he would head to the basement of the restaurant and prop open a door that was almost never used at the McDonald's.
I've literally never heard of a McDonald's with a basement, but
actually, you know what? Many of them do, and you just don't know about it. I didn't know that
really?
either. Yeah.
Well, I'll say this. I live in, and I don't mind saying, obviously, I live in the state of Virginia, and the water table is so high that there are very few, unless they're old homes, there are very few places that have basements. So that's probably why.
Okay,
really
maybe, yeah.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, like my sister worked at a McDonald's that I didn't know had a basement, but they did. Because it's all just, offices and stuff.
And they're all connected by tunnels.
Yes, of course. Yeah,
That's it. I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat for a second. All right. Keep
Space
costs
lizards
down.
Because of this, no one would notice that it was propped open either, right?
Right.
After leaving work, Derek would head out to meet with his friends, Freeman and Darren. Their plan was to wear 2 layers of clothing so that once they fled the restaurant, they could ditch the 1 layer of clothing.
Okay.
The 3 would hop into one of their cars and head to the McDonald's. Freeman would bring a .22 caliber pistol, but Derek would end up carrying it during the robbery.
Could I just say in my brain, I'm thinking of these guys that are in 2 layers of clothes, and then they get out and they change their clothes, they take off the clothes, and then one of the guys is just literally in a thong, and that's it. And the guys stare at him, and he's like, "What?"
Unfortunately, with this one, no.
Where are you hiding all the cash?
Yeah.
You don't want to know.
The trio would park the car on a nearby dirt road just far enough away to not be conspicuous. Mm-hmm. Freeman was tasked with guarding the door they snuck in through. So Freeman had a shovel handle and a length of rope as a weapon. Darren had on a Halloween mask and was carrying 2 knives. Derek Wood, as I mentioned, had a handgun. The 3 guys would surprise both Donna Warren, 22, as well as Arlene McNeil, 20, upon entry. Both women would recognize Derek right away, as he had only left from work more than a few hours ago.
What?
Yeah.
Don't shit where you eat, sir.
Exactly. It was evident very quickly that Derek had no intention of only robbing the McDonald's, as he would raise the gun right away and shoot Arlene in the face, and she would drop face first to the ground.
What?
Yeah.
I should have known this was coming. God.
Yeah. While not fatal, Arlene was in really bad shape.
Yeah.
Freeman would keep Donna where she was, while both Derek and Darren would rush upstairs to see if anyone was in the now closed restaurant. Mm-hmm. Unlucky for Neil Burrows Jr., 29, he was busy cleaning in the kitchen and heard nothing. Well, it was not mentioned. I would have to assume that maybe he had some music on or something loud to drown out the gunshots downstairs, only moments before, which would make sense. I mean, most McDonald's or whatever restaurants have, stereo systems so they can play some canned music, and I'm sure you could turn on whatever tunes you liked
at the end of the
end of the shift. Yeah. Derek would raise the gun again and shoot Neil once again in the head. Neil would fall to his knees, maimed but still alive. Darren would then proceed to stab him in the neck, and he would fall bleeding.
God.
Derek would rush back downstairs and force Donna to come up with him to the main floor of the restaurant to open up the safe, as she was the manager on the shift.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as the safe was opened up, Derek proceeded to shoot Donna in the head, killing her. Yeah, like I said.
Yep. You can't see this, but he just took a drink of beer. That's how I feel too. Here we go.
In the safe, the guys would find a total of $2,017, a far cry from the $200,000 expected.
Yeah.
See, the thing is that Derek was an idiot, right? He did not realize that the managers would do bank drops multiple times a day, and there was never a huge sum of money in the office safe.
This is exactly the reason why.
Well, it is just not a good business move to leave that much cash on hand.
And it's not a cartoon. Like, you're not
No.
going to open the safe and like piles of money are going to come out like you're Scrooge. You know what I mean? Like, it's the most
Yeah.
ridiculous. Like, the thought that, yeah, how? You know what? I'm not going to
That
ask
they're not
how.
smart people. They're just not
No,
smart people.
not at all.
Derek Freeman and possibly Darren would head back out to where Neil was lying on the kitchen floor bleeding, and things got worse. Freeman would proceed to beat Neil with the handle of the shovel that he brought as a weapon. Derek would shoot him once again in the head, and Neil would no longer suffer.
Yeah.
Having the small wad of cash, the three would plan to book it back down to the basement to leave out the door and close it behind them.
Mm-hmm.
There was a slight issue, though. Jimmy Fagan, 27, was arriving at 1 a.m. for his overnight shift when this all was going down.
Mm-hmm.
He had taken a cab to work and was opening the back kitchen door when he saw Derek, his coworker. Derek would take no chances and shoot him in the head also. The guys would take this clue and flee the restaurant. Taxi driver would see the three guys fleeing the restaurant, though, and thought something was wrong and would turn back and would get out of his car to see what was happening. He would see that Jimmy had been shot in the head and rushed to call for the police. And again, this is 1992, so he's not using a cell phone.
No, you got to find a landline.
Yeah. I have to assume he ran into the restaurant. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
So Jimmy would die the next day on May 8th, 1992. Let's step away from the crime for a few minutes and let's get to know a little bit about the victims of this horrendous crime.
Mm-hmm.
Right after a message from this beer.
It's an important PSA.
Yes. Donna Warren was a 22-year-old shift manager at the McDonald's location. She was well liked and was known to have a bubbly and outgoing personality. She was working and going to school currently, taking computer courses with the hope of one day being a lawyer. She was also noted as being active in brownies and Girl Guides, although I'm not sure if this meant she was working as a leader or just that she grew up doing both. Mm-hmm. It wasn't super clear, but thought I mentioned it anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to find info on victims sometimes.
Right.
Neil Burrows Jr. was 29 years old and worked in the maintenance department for McDonald's. He lived in Glace Bay with his wife and son and was part of a large, close family. He was fond of attending parties and hitting the dance floor. He was a guy that would never speak ill of anyone and would never get involved with others' arguments. Neil and one other sister would love to go on road trips to Halifax, Nova Scotia to visit one of their other sisters.
Mm-hmm.
So just salt of the earth, right?
Yeah.
James, or Jimmy Fagan, was 27 years old and worked at Zeller's, a Canadian department store that closed around 2013. Although it's reopened recently in Hudson's Bay Company stores, but that's another thing.
That is a whole other ballgame.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Jimmy was the second youngest of 8 children with 2 sisters and 5 brothers. He was known to be very kind and just had a good vibe. While he would hold on for one day, he would pass away on May 8th, 1992, as I said, where his organs were donated, helping save multiple lives.
Oh, wow.
And then Arlene McNeil, the first victim of the attack, was 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she shared the last name with Freeman, one of the attackers. They were not related at all.
Yeah.
She was an only child to parents Jermaine and Howard McNeil. She was the prom queen at Memorial High School and was well liked. She was working at McDonald's while going to University College of Cape Breton, now Cape Breton University. She was a massive fan of country music and loved to go on walks. Sadly, while she lived, the attack would leave her with physical and mental disabilities. The bullet would damage her brain, and she would end up in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. She would still enjoy a long wheel along town and still love to listen to her favorite style of music, country.
Mm-hmm.
She would also become a big fan of computer games, which is, it's great because now that she's not mobile as much, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Somehow, through all of this, she was still a very positive person.
I mean, I haven't been through like a 16th of that, and I'm not.
I mean,
So
either.
that's
Yeah.
that's awesome.
So, due to her disabilities, she would end up moving into a specialized care facility and would live there for 23 years.
Mhm.
Sadly, she would die on August 15th, 2018, at only 46 years old. Yeah. And it sounds like it wasn't fully unexpected. Like her health
Mhm.
wasn't the greatest. They didn't
Yeah.
actually say what she died of. All right. Derek Wood, Freeman McNeil, and Darren Muse may have gotten away that night, but their freedom was not long term.
Good.
With the call into police by the taxi driver, the RCMP were on the trail. Luckily for all, the trio would be caught within 10 days.
Good. Great job.
Yeah. They would kill no more people and likely also had no chance to rob any more people as they were on the run.
Yeah.
It would take about a year, but the three would all be charged and be put on trial. All three would be tried separately, and Derek would be the first one up.
Mm-hmm.
Derek was up first as he would confess to the murders and robbery first. He would be charged with first-degree murder of Donna Warren and Neil Burrows, attempted murder of Arlene McNeil. There was also other crimes attached, including robbery. He would be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 25 years. This is the maximum sentence in Canada, just so you know.
Yeah.
He would appeal a sentence, but it would not be taken seriously, and he would continue to spend his time behind bars.
Can you imagine he's in front of the parole board and they're just like, no.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
just like, absolutely not.
So he was first eligible for parole in 2017, but as of March 2023, he has lost every attempt at parole.
He's still there. Good.
So he applied for day parole in 2015 because you can get day parole before your parole date in Canada. So there's where they come with you, and then you can get on, you can get it by yourself sometimes too.
Yeah.
I'll get into it. So he applied for day parole in 2015, as is possible in Canada, but he was denied.
Yeah.
He has been turned down time and again because his psych evaluation states that he is a medium to high risk to reoffend in a violent manner.
I would say so.
Yes. Up next was Darren Muse. He would plead guilty to second-degree murder of Neil Burrows and to robbery. He would have a plea bargain worked out that would drop other charges. It wouldn't affect those two.
Right.
But other ones.
Yeah.
He would be sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole for 20 years. He would get his high school equivalency behind bars. He would be able to get out on escorted day parole starting in 2007, and then without an escort in 2009. He would then get full parole in 2012 due to his work rehabilitating as well as for good behavior.
Okay.
His diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder and narcissistic traits had lessened over the years.
And that's impressive at the fact that it lessened in prison.
Yeah, right?
Because you'd think that it'd only get worse.
For sure. Well, he was released. There were some conditions, including being barred from using drugs, going back to Sydney River, or being in contact with any of the victims' families.
Mm-hmm.
From what I can gather, he now lives in British Columbia after spending time in Quebec. His move to British Columbia was to help his common law partner care for her elderly father.
Oh.
It seems horribly ironic that his partner is well off enough that Darren does not need to work today.
Well,
but I mean,
certainly.
I have to try to believe in a justice system where if you actually rehabilitate, you should be released, because I don't really believe in the incarceration state. Like, we keep arresting people and putting them behind bars for so many bullshit reasons.
Right.
I mean, yes, there's some people that should never be released.
Right.
But also there's people put away for the rest of their lives for fucking having a joint. Like,
yeah,
the system should be about rehabilitation is some people will never be rehabilitated, but that should be the goal.
It should be, and it's stated as such. But the problem for them with rehabilitation is that it costs money.
It does, yes.
And they don't want to spend the money.
Yes. Well, it's getting ahead, but at this point, he is still not reoffended. So at this point, it seems to have worked for him.
Good.
Yes.
I mean, he did shitty things.
Yes.
There's no doubt that he's done shitty things.
20 years ago. Well, more than 20 years ago now.
But I mean, that is so quite a long time. And the fact that he hasn't reoffended, to me, means that something went right.
Yeah.
Or something kicked off in his head. And so while I'm still not happy with what he did.
No, God, no.
I'm
horrible.
Certainly, I'm glad that he was able to kind of pull himself together.
Yeah.
Get his shit together.
Exactly. So moving on to Freeman McNeil. Mm-hmm. He was also sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 25 years. Mm-hmm. Well, he was eligible for day parole in 2014. He would not get his chance until 2016. He would get some unescorted leave in 2019, but something must have happened as he would lose his rights to day parole.
Yeah.
He would again on December 29th, 2022, start getting day parole, but that's as far as he's made it. Parole was denied multiple times over the years as he was deemed too high a risk to reoffend.
Wow.
It's amazing he's still getting day parole, even if it's escorted. Like, if you're deemed a high risk to reoffend, you're fucking behind bars. Period.
Yep.
So I will finish this case off with 2 notes. One, that Neil Burrows' sister, Kathy Burrows, all these years later, has been attending the parole hearings of these 3 men to try and keep them behind bars, which I totally understand.
Absolutely.
I mean, her life was turned upside down.
And I think for casual people who think about or read about some of these cases, the thing that they don't understand is, although parole for some people I can understand, obviously, and for a lot of petty bullshit offenses I can understand, but for the folks that are, massive criminals or have caused a lot of death and destruction, when parole comes up, those families have to open the wounds again.
Yeah.
And they go, or they have to test, talk, or they have to, they need to do something in order to keep them in. And so that it is it's so difficult for somebody to be on parole every however many years.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's definitely the rough part of the Canadian system. I mean, as much as it's rough for the families, and I know it is, I still would rather our system where there is still a slight hope of one day getting out of prison. I just don't understand putting someone away for like 300 years. It just doesn't make sense. No. I know it's, justice for a family or whatever, but it's just ridiculous. No one is ever going to live that long. Cancer will get us all before that point.
What's fascinating to me is I feel like, the first like 10 times that they said 300 years was to make a point.
Yeah.
And they might as well just say for the rest of your natural life.
Just say life then.
But, they seem to think it still makes a point to people who would be criminals.
It doesn't.
Go away for 300. It doesn't matter. They don't care. So,
No, they don't. I guess. And the second thing I just want to mention is that McDonald's, where this all took place, stayed open for 8 more years after the tragedy. But in the end, it would be closed and leveled. Yeah. And I think I read it's still an empty lot to this day. I could be wrong, though.
I'm amazed that they kept it. I mean, I'm not amazed that they kept it open. It was profitable.
McDonald's overall corporate does not own the locations. They're all licensed out to local owners, right? So it's someone's local business.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, as much as McDonald's is a huge, massive corporation, it's really a real estate company.
Yeah.
And it's just got a bunch of small business people that own the locations.
You're right. Absolutely.
It's like, Walmart is actually owned by some fucking billionaire in the States. But, McDonald's, the brand is owned by some big corporation, but each location is a small business person for the most part.
Yep. Usually it's like small business company, ownership company, or one person, or
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, that's the Sydney River McDonalds murders.
I think, throughout it's horrible. I think throughout you telling me this, I think it's interesting that you and I both basically picked mass shootings. But there's not a lot in Nova Scotia, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, like most of the crimes that I read about were small petty crimes.
Right.
And there's just been a couple really awful mass shootings for some reason. I think maybe it's because it's more rural. There's definitely more guns in rural Canada. And this sounded like, I didn't really mention it, but it sounds like this gun was a stolen gun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
What's fascinating to me is that for as little in terms of like big events, big crimes, it's interesting to me that for how few of those there are, that these people weren't transplants from different places.
Mm-hmm.
These people were from that province, right?
Yeah, that region. And, like they might not have been quite from Sydney River. I think they might have been from the other little small towns right there, but
they were from Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
And so for me, like when I think of how few I found in terms of big occurrences, I'd think that if something happened, it probably wouldn't be from the folks in that general culture, that province.
You wouldn't think, yeah.
So it's interesting. I mean, it's literally just bad people. Like there's going to be a certain percentage of those folks, and they just happen to be that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's something we were talking about today on a private chat with a couple other podcasters, and it was about school shootings.
Mm-hmm.
But, there was another one, unfortunately, the day of recording, there was another one in the States. There'll be probably 3 or 4 before this comes out, at least, unfortunately, and it's awful. But in the history of Canada since Confederation, which was in 1867, there's been 20 school shootings, which is too many. But it is, and any are too many.
That's my 1 month.
So if I worked out the math and took the population of the United States and the population of Canada, if we scaled up to the population of the United States, there would have been 160 school shootings since Confederation in 1867.
And that's about so much. That's how many we've had this year.
And no, the United States. I know
we've had more.
We are currently at the very end of March as of recording. There has been 288 in 2023 in the United States.
Yeah.
So it is so weird that in a small province of 1 million people, there was 2 mass shootings.
Right.
And that's not, it's not something that happens in a large scale in Canada. It just isn't.
Yeah, no. And
it's crazy.
Only 13 years apart. 13 years apart.
What year was that one in?
Mine. 2021, I want to say. I think it's 21. I'm pretty sure it's 21. I should know. I just stared at the data this entire time.
So you were a little off on the range. 29 years.
I was, because I can't math. We've proven this. JT can't math. I cannot. I can true crime. I can tell you a lot about Charles Manson, but I can't tell you the square root of 9. No, it's 3. I know that much.
Yes. But yes, we're not going to, fix all of the issues in culture today, but don't shoot people, fuckers.
Right?
Just don't do it.
Like here, we'll just put it this way. The amount of women in the U.S. who have been mass shooters is 5, right? 5 women, including today. And that is a quarter of your total.
Yeah.
It's like
since 1867. It's a long time ago.
It's almost like we have looser gun laws.
Or we can get into it. I don't think it's just the looser gun laws. It's a culture of violence. Unfortunately, I think it goes right back to your Confederation. Your country was born in violence.
It was.
It was born in violence. Ours was born signing some papers and leaving England, right?
Right.
You know, you're one of the few countries that was born in violence that isn't currently still at war, it seems. But
Right.
and I mean, you're kind of at war with yourself still.
Well, and we selectively enjoy our history, right?
Yes.
We enjoy First and Second Amendment
Yeah.
to a fault, literally to a fault.
Well, and you know, like the Pledge of Allegiance, it's kind of
yeah.
odd to people outside the United States. You know, like we don't do that. I don't know of any other countries that do that. We don't, I don't know most of the prime ministers since Confederation. We don't celebrate that really. Like that's not something we learn all that closely. It's meh.
I think half of the issue, you know, and I like the fact that you brought that up, is that the folks that represent the different states and the government and stuff, they're like idolized as celebrities.
Yeah.
And if we removed that, maybe they'd do some shit, you know? Like,
I mean, other than my own premier, which is the head of the province,
right?
I only know one other premier in Canada.
Right.
It's just like, I don't care.
Right. Right. And
I know Ron DeSantis for bad reasons.
Right.
You know, like I know American politics for all the wrong reasons more than I know Canadian politics.
And it's fascinating. You know, I didn't realize, and we'll wrap it up in a second here, but I didn't realize how
soapbox
insane, you know, our bullshit was until I started. Number one, I met you, but I've also met plenty of people outside the country. And although people in different countries are dealing with their own shit,
oh yeah, there's problems everywhere.
They still look at the US and, you know, their general opinion is, well, we're not them.
You know, we love your media, but oh my God, come on.
Right. Like, you know,
I mean, like, you know, systemic racism is everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, people like, you know, there's not as large a population of black people in Canada, and the systemic racism isn't as deep with black people. It's with Indigenous people here.
Right.
You know, it's, you know, it's all there.
It is all there. And you know, I mentioned this too in the chat today, is that, you know, the most ignorant are the loudest.
Yes.
And those of us that, you know, we band together and we're the ones that are trying to solve things on the DL as best we can. And I think that that's the majority. The problem is the minority is the loudest, and they always will be the loudest. And until we can figure out a way to shut them up, we're going to keep hearing.
Well, I think what it needs to be is people have to be better at getting out there and voting.
It's true.
And
it's true.
It you know, like voter suppression is not as big a thing in Canada. In the States, it's a fucking big thing. Get out there, make sure you're fucking part of a voting population and vote. Vote the monsters out.
I'm really hoping, and it's not going to stop me, and I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing, but I'm really hoping that as the younger generations become able to vote, we're going to see a shift.
I hope so.
Because these kids are visibly being impacted by this, and they're noticing it, and they're becoming more active, and that's the best thing. It sucks how they became active. But I'm glad that they're active and they're paying attention, and they're starting getting involved in school board meetings and things like that. That's awesome. And
hey, kids, call us out. Get this done. Let's fix this.
You want a platform and you're reasonable, you let us know, because we'll bring you on. I'm fine with talking about issues. I think it would be great. Not that this is going to become like a super duper uber political podcast, right? Or true crime ultimately, but if you want a platform and you have a reasonable character personality, you know, I mean, we'd like to hear from you.
And also, I'm on the show, so it might.
I mean, it's true. And it ultimately would if we had somebody, you know, on to talk about it. But, you know, we're perfectly fine with that. We love having guests.
Yeah.
So, you know, reach out to us. Mike's at Brew Crime, and I'm at JT Brews Crime on Twitter. And we got Brew Crime everywhere else, so find us.
So thanks for tuning in. You can also find us at our Facebook group, Brew Crime the Group. If you'd like to support the show, head to patreon.com/brewcrime now.
Mm-hmm.
The money goes towards upgrading equipment and making the show that much better. You get one bonus episode a month, as well as early ad-free access to our episodes. That includes the brewery episodes with Paige.
Yay!
Woo!
Fuck around and find out.
Yeah. So shout out to our Patreon supporters, Jay is Rad, True Crime Nana, 3% Podcast, and the faves of our lives. Bye.
Auf Wiedersehen. Goodbye. Tschüss.
All cases in Brew Crime are written by Mike and JT or a writer we credit on the episode, and sources are put into our show notes for each episode. We always want to give credit to the people that research the cases we talk about. Check out our store at tpublic.com/stores/brew-crime-podcast, where you can purchase gear like t-shirts, phone cases, stickers, pillows, and all kinds of other cool stuff. Brew Crime's intro was created by Mike using Creative Commons Attribution licensed audio from purple-planet.com, soundbible.com, and freesoundeffects.com. Logo designed by Ben Greenberg. Thanks for listening to this episode of Brew Crime Podcast.
Welcome to Brew Crime, where we talk... Fucked it up already. Every fucking time today.
I don't know. It's just the theme. It's Monday.
Nova Scotia.
Down.
I'm going to quickly just do a quick Google something. I want to just double check something.
And if Mike doesn't cover it, I'll cover it briefly next week.
What's the island called that New York City's on? So basically, what?
I want you to get 2 sentences without me commenting, but I do want to comment on the fact that you said scuttlebutt, and that makes me very happy.
Yeah.
So,
but he would take one, sorry, this guy would take. You okay there?
Sorry,
I'm gonna delete that.
I'm gonna mute myself. You keep going.
You went down the wrong tube.
Understandable. To patrol, not
Good.
patrol. Damn it.
No, neither,
Yes.
or none of them.
Equivalency